Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today, at the request of a donor, I am playing a pretty spicy take on the Elf archetype. This is a list that came from a Japanese tournament, and it's got some pretty interesting tech. So the reason classic combo Elves fell apart was somewhat down to Orcish Bowmasters, which could ping down any of our creatures, and if we had a Glimpse of Nature chain going, every time we drew a card, they'd ping down another one of our guys, we'd never really get any momentum going. So this build is not using that as its main engine. We've got a different engine here, which is a new card from Modern Horizons. This is Eladamri Korvecdal. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So this is 1 green for 3/3, which is not a terrible rate. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. So instead of having to draw creatures, we can just keep casting them off the top. We've seen effects like this in the Karn Forge decks, where you just have Mystic Forge and just rip through your deck. So we get to do that here. We also have another ability on it that is really cool, which is green, tap 2 untapped creatures you control. So 3 creatures in total, which is something we're going to have a lot of. Reveal a card from your hand or the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card this way, put it onto the battlefield, activate only during your turn. So this is like kind of natural order, as well as being a card advantage engine. It's going to be doing an awful lot of stuff for us. Now this does have to sit and play for a turn before we get to pop it, but we still have natural orders that we can reach for that effect anyway. But this is pretty cool. Alongside this, our creatures are quite often going to be X1s, so we've got some Sylvan Anthems here. These allow us to pump our creatures outside of Bowmasters and some other little effects like that. And it means that we can muscle out some Ocelot Prides and stuff like that in combat as well. And the Scry here is useful because we care about what's on top of our library a lot more than you even normally would. We have a Leaf Crown Visionary. This is another relatively new elf, so this is another pump effect. And whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay green if you do draw a card. So we do still have that draw a card engine if we want it, but it's selective when we use it, and it's also a thing that's going to pump our creatures. And alongside Sylvan Anthem, we can actually end up with some pretty meaty bodies to be sending into the red zone. The Visionary is something that we can reuse with our Wirewood Symbiote and draw through our deck, and we can obviously find it using the Green Sun Zenith. Then we have a Quirion Ranger, which is just a classic component that you shoot it for sometimes. It lets you untap some creatures and get some more mana. Speaking of mana, we have a lot of mana. So we've got Birchlore Rangers as a 4 of, Heritage Druid as a 4 of, and we've even got a Jaspera Sentinel, which is kind of like a Birchlore Rangers, but not quite as good. But a 5th Birchlore Rangers is apparently what this deck wants, so I'm going to run with it. We've got some Nettle Sentinels here, which obviously get to make mana and then untap when we cast a spell. So these can help us just vomit a load of stuff off the top of our deck and into play. And Allosaurus Shepherd means that those things aren't getting countered, and also they get to be huge if we get to do like Cradle shenanigans. Silver bullet wise, we've got a few here. I've already mentioned the 2 up here, but we've also got our Grist, the Hunger Tide. This is the only piece of removal really in our deck, but it's a pretty strong one. We've got Craterhoof, just a classic natural order for this. Trample over you, win the game. We have Atraxa, which is a really good standalone threat that digs us a little bit. And because we've got a few more types here, we've got ourselves some enchantments in here as well. So maybe we'll be able to get more than you normally would off an Atraxa in an Elf deck. I never really liked Atraxa in Elves that much, but I think the body is obviously great. But it tended to sort of draw you like 2, maybe 3 cards. And this one we have the opportunity to draw 4, potentially 5 cards, right? So it can be a little bit better. But if you want to draw cards, that's what this little fellow Torsten is for. This is a card that has impressed me when I played it. So this is a 7 mana, 7/7. When it enters, reveal the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of creature and or land cards from among them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. And then when it dies, you get 7/1/1 white soldier token. So if you get Wrath while this is in play, you at least end up with a pretty sizable board anyway. But the fact is, this comes in and draws you about 5 cards. And I've certainly drawn all 7 off this before in Elves. This has been a card that's impressed me in the Elf shell. So that's pretty much what we're doing. The lands are as you expect. We've got a couple of Dryad Arbors. We've got a Boseiju hidden away in there. The full set of Cradles, because, that kind of makes the deck tick. We've got some fetch lands. Possibly more fetch lands than you'd normally see, because you want to be shuffling the top of our deck a little bit. But we've got 3 forests and 3 bayous to fetch with them, as well as obviously the Dryad Arbor. Sideboard-wise, we've got an interesting selection of tools. We've got another Boseiju when we want that. We've got some Graveyard Hate and Tool Mods Crypt. We've got this card, a new card that I added over the Scavenging Ooze that was in the original list. This is a card that I think is very good. It's just Scavenging Ooze, but it's easier to make it into a big creature. And you don't have to put green mana into it. Obviously, we are going to be putting green mana into it because of the nature of our deck. But the fact that we have this card that is going to be more likely to be bigger than a Scavenging Ooze is the real deal. And the downside of it being green-green isn't a downside in our deck anyway. We've got Craterhoof. This is another nice thing we can tutor for. We've got an Endurance to tutor for Graveyard Hate. A Reclamation Sage to blow up some problem permanents. An interesting piece of Graveyard Hate in Agatha's Soul Cauldron, because we can use this to remove cards from our opponent's graveyard, as well as being an engine that we can use with like our own Grist, or we can get this Eladamri and put that underneath it, and then all of a sudden when we start putting counters on our things, it kind of pops off. So this is an interesting card with some utility. You normally see these in dedicated Cauldron decks, so I'm fascinated to see how it plays out as a sideboard card that we bring in that does have some synergy with our deck, but generally is going to be a thing that we can kind of do a little bit of both with. We've got some Abrupt Decays and Assassin's Trophies for when we need to remove some stuff, same with the Fatal Push. We have a one-off Progenitus. I really like Progenitus in Elf decks because it is quite a difficult thing for a lot of decks to answer, and sometimes that's what you need, right? So we'll be boarding this in when we just need a big unstoppable monster, and that's pretty good. I think we have like more big creatures than you would normally see in an Elf deck because of the Eladamri. That's one of the changes I made. I added in the Torsten over a Sylvan Anthem. That was pretty much the only change I made from the original list. But I wanted to have a little bit more use out of Eladamri, and I do love Torsten in these lists. Other than that, we have one more natural order in case we need to go fast. And some matchups we do need to go fast, so we need to race to natural order and try and overrun them. And that's where we can board that in. Whereas matchups where they have lots of counter magic and they're just planning on stopping our natural order, the natural orders become worse and you can board down on them. Alright, that's the deck. I'm quite excited to try this one. I do enjoy playing Elves, and I have a pretty good record of playing them on the channel, weirdly. Even though I don't really play Elves very often, I just seem to have a great time when I do. So like and subscribe, and let's have a great time with our little green friends. Right, we've won the die roll for round one. We've got pretty clunky hand that I'm not a fan of. We didn't really go anywhere with this, and the symbiotes aren't exceptional where we had this sort of set up for things. If we had some kind of Elvish Visionary, it would be better off, but we're going to mulligan it. Okay, I like this one a bit more. I think we can keep this, and we can send back this Atraxa. That's a thing for later. And we can just start out with a nice bit of Birchlore Rangers action, I think. There's an argument to playing the Heritage Druid first. If they remove that, then we are a long way away from having 3 creatures anyway, whereas the Birchlore Rangers only needing 2 creatures. Tap for mana is fine, but we're just going to leave it in play for now and see how we go. Alright, an Undercity Sewers from our opponents. And a Lotus Petal. Okay, so our opponent's probably not doing something very fair if they've got Lotus Petals in their deck. So let's see how that works for us. So if we play this Allosaurus Shepherd. So we play this Allosaurus Shepherd, then that gives us another mana. I'm trying to work out the best way to get this Leaf Crown Visionary in play and start drawing cards off of it. I think we want to try and get the Cradle into play this turn, which probably means we're going something along the lines of Allosaurus Shepherd. Just to make sure we have uncounterable mana here. And then if we play this Cradle out, that taps for 2 mana. So we could play a Leaf Crown Visionary and draw a card. Seems reasonable to me. Sorry, we don't get to draw a card, we get to play the Heritage Druid. We don't get to draw a card off this, but we do get to have the Heritage Druid going. Now we've got a lot of power in play if our opponent is a thing we need to pressure. Which I imagine they are. My immediate impression that our opponent is playing Doomsday. So having lots of creatures in play is the best way to tackle Doomsday early on if you don't have any sort of disruption. We don't really have any disruption. This is the Brainstorm. The last one was off of the Undercity Sewers and they milled it over. Wow, they're just scooping it up. That's wild to me. 2, 4, 6, 7 damage. So we hit them for 7, then they go down to 13. And then if they cast Doomsday, they would lose. I do think our opponent is on Doomsday. So how would we beat a deck that is doing Doomsday things? The Endurance can have an impact on a Doomsday player. Because we can put the cards back in their library and then they don't win. Boseiju is reasonable here as well. We can take out one of the lands after they've Doomsday. They might not have enough of the correct mana sources to actually go off. So these are things I'm interested in. We do need to respect Psychic Frog a little bit, but I don't think we have to respect it entirely here. I don't think I'm going to be boarding in a Fatal Push or anything, or Abrupt Decays. We just need to change the way we play. I don't believe this Grist is going to be the most important of things. I think I'd rather have an Endurance over a Grist here. We can probably swap out just one of our fetch lands for a Boseiju is fine. And then we could board out a Forest instead. But then we have less things to fetch, so our fetch lands become more likely to be dead. Is this a matchup where we need to race and put an actual order on the stack? It might well be. So drawing a bunch of cards with an Atraxa and just having this Atraxa body is probably not good enough because the life isn't going to matter because that's not how our opponent wins a game. Do we need to... I don't think we've got the time to be doing all this Wirewood Symbiote shenanigans, so we'll probably trim one of those as well. Are we supposed to keep the... If we take out a Forest here, we still have got 5, 6, 7 things to fetch. So that's probably fine rather than taking out a fetch. And our life total doesn't matter here. You could board in something like Craterhoof and maybe try and get them that way, but I don't think that's the way I want to be running this one. Do I like a Progenitus as just a big thing here? Like, Torsten is a big thing that finds us more cards on average than Atraxa. So I think that's probably where I'm going to be here. Atraxa is better against specifically Psychic Frog from the opponent. But our deck should be able to overwhelm a Psychic Frog, because they can't attack and block with it. Alright, we got some Nettle Sentinels. I do want to try out this Eladamri, so we're going to keep this one. We're on the draw, so a lot of our draws give us an additional thing we can play on turn 2. Dark Ritual. Is this just a Doomsday straight up? Okay, we almost certainly do not beat this. And we're not really a deck that's well kitted to beat Doomsday, so I'm not particularly worried if we lose this one. Our deck is going to have weaknesses. That's the thing you have to understand a lot of the time. And if anyone tells you that their deck doesn't have weaknesses, or, you know, what are your bad matchups, and your opponent doesn't immediately know the matchup, I tend to, well, not your opponent, whoever you're talking to, doesn't say what the bad matchup is. Alright, our opponent's going off right now. It means they either don't really know what they're doing, or there's something incredibly broken in the format. And if there's something incredibly broken in the format, you'll probably know about it. That's why I always ask people what their bad matchups are first, rather than their good matchups. I like to choose what I lose to. So our opponent is just going to rip through their deck here with a bunch of stuff and Thassa's Oracle. Not much we can do about the turn 1 Doomsday. So, like, we could have something like Craterhoof to stop some of those lines, and it maybe buys us a turn. Is that worth doing? It's probably similar to Sylvan Anthem in terms of the amount of damage it adds to the board a lot of the time. Is that true? No, I think that's fine. Like, Craterhoof is not great here. It's not going to do very much for us. But it might be better than an Anthem. So, we don't have second land, which is kind of annoying here. We could turn 1 Green Sun Zenith for Dryad Arbor. Have 2 mana for turn 2 and try and go that way. We just don't really have good options in this matchup, so we just need to put a bunch of stuff in play and hope it gets there. This is like an ideal matchup for the Doomsday player. Let's go and get ourselves a Dryad Arbor. So if we can get this Eladamri in play, we might be able to like spam a load of stuff off the top of our deck and be able to put in a big scary monster. If our opponent just Doomsdays Dark Rituals now, we're almost certainly dead though. Thoughtseize. Okay, that's not so bad. Our hand has got a lot of stuff in it. We've got the Wirewood Symbiote Visionary combo, so if the game drags on a little bit, we can start accruing some card advantage that way. They might just take the Heritage Druid and cut us off with mana. That's annoying, but makes sense. They could just take the weird new card of Eladamri. They took the Heritage Druid. That is not a surprise. I think I would do the same thing. What is the correct play here? Probably just Elvish Visionary and try and dig into some land. Alright, we've got a Daze. That's pretty annoying for us. So the other option there was either Sylvan Anthem, which makes all of our follow-up creatures better, but doesn't immediately advance our game plan that much, or Nettle Sentinel and Wirewood Symbiote. Right, Ponder. That is not a Dark Ritual into Doomsday, so that is something. Another Sylvan Anthem. Alright, let's just jam a 2-2 and a 1-1. Okay, so now if we stick a Sylvan Anthem, we can bash her a fair bit. Just start pressuring our opponent's life total with fair green creatures. Okay, a Dark Ritual. So this might just be the end of the game because our opponent can Doomsday and they also have this 1 mana floating. If they have a Brainstorm in hand, then it's lights out. If they have a Ponder, it's probably lights out. It's easier to work with the Brainstorm usually because you get to get the cards you actually need off the top. But they might have bits and pieces that work for them. If they've got like a Cycler, they might be able to win with a Ponder here. They did this pile incredibly quickly, so our opponent knows what they're doing and they're almost certainly going to kill us right now. Yep, that'll do. Alright, let's go to round 2. Alright, our opener for round 2 does not feature a starting piece of mana. It's close. If we had 1 forest, I would keep this one. But we don't, so let's send it back. Well, I just said we didn't have any mana as we can't keep, so you know where this hand is going. Yikes. Okay, I guess we're going to keep. I think the best way to win this game is using Allosaurus Shepherd and Natural Order. So I guess we get rid of this, and this can be mana, so can the Heritage Druid, but not together. Like if we're keeping these cards, we probably just keep the Quirion Ranger because this allows us to bounce a Dryad Arbor to untap a Dryad Arbor. It's not great for us. It's not how I would like to start this one. Sometimes the Magic Gods have a cruel sense of humour. But our opponent did not play anything on their first turn. I don't know what that means for us. What is our opponent up to over there? Are they a combo deck that just needs 1 piece? So it could be like Oops All Spells. We're about to get absolutely rolled. There's Allosaurus Shepherd down. We'd love to draw a Cradle. That'd be good. Alright, here we go with whatever nonsense our opponent is up to. Simian Spirit Guide. Is this Necro Dominance? 2 Simian Spirit Guides. Mana Morphos into black mana into Necro Dominance, win the game. I assume that's what's happening here. Now this deck has a non-zero fail rate, so we do have to let them play it out. But their fail rate is quite low. Okay, they didn't draw the thing they needed, and we just get a free win there. The cards I've seen make me think our opponent is playing Necro Dominance, which means I want to play things that blow up Necro Dominance. So that's what these do. Also, Craterhoof, pretty solid here. We do not need the Grist here. We probably don't need the Sylvan Anthems here. They're fine for beating our opponent down, but that's not really what this game is about. We want to play a 1-drop and then hold up our 2-mana interaction, which might be too slow, which is true. We can take out a Wirewood Symbiote. We're not going to have time to do all the shenanigans. I think I'd quite like just have some natural orders here. Maybe the Eladamri is slow. Spells probably aren't being countered here, are they? Alright, we can try something along these lines. This is a really weird and skewed matchup. Now, if I've incorrectly identified what our opponent's deck is, sure. But Lotus Petal, Simian Spirit Guide, all these things are making a case for it to be what I think it is. Alright. We have the one piece of interaction that works in this matchup. If our opponent can't combo on turn 1, then we'll be okay. Now, they might have some Thoughtseize or something to interact with us. We'll see. 4 cards. Our opponent's kept on 4. Alright, they're passing again. So we need to stave off another turn after this. We'll play out a Heritage Druid. We need our opponent to pass a turn one more time. Chrome Mox. This doesn't fill me with the joy. I think we might be getting womboed out right now. There's a Cabal Ritual. Everything still looks like the deck I thought it was. Alright, they're passing. I'll play out a Bayou and I will attack for 1. Next turn I can deploy 1-drops slowly but surely. We're just going to hit the Necro Dominance when they cast it. A Dark Ritual. Sure. A Necro Dominance. Sure. Let's just blow that up. Unlike Necropotence, you don't just get to immediately draw the cards. So now we have a lot of mana to work with here. Potentially. So let's go and get ourselves... If we play this one out first, and then we go and get a Nettle Sentinel, and we can make 3 mana here. We can play Eladamri. Alright, this is the top card of our library, so we don't get to play this now. But we can put an Atraxa into play next turn. It's pretty good, I hear. Maybe it finds us another piece of disruption. Alright, our opponent's had enough. But we were going to do the thing. But we won the game because we had an Abrupt Decay and our opponent had to mulligan. Alright, I'll take that match and let's go to the 3rd match. We're into round 3. We are waiting for our opponent to make a decision. Alright, they've decided. What does our hand look like here? Reasonable. I'll keep this one. We've got a couple of elves. We've got a Green Sun Zenith to find whatever missing piece is by the time we get there. And Urza's Saga. Into Voltaic. Okay, so this is going to be another matchup where what we're doing doesn't really matter that much. Times. I will play a Heritage Druid. This is the thing that's most likely to jump us ahead of mana next turn if we can find like another 1-drop. We do not have a main deck Craterhoof to rely on here. So our opponent's probably just going to be able to combo underneath us. Because whilst we have a deck that can play the sort of middle in game when we're not comboing, just aggro people out a bit better, our opponent's deck is a bit of a different beast, where it's all in on the combos is a lot quicker. How are we going to navigate this turn? We can tap this to play a Shepherd. We can play Cradle. We can Zenith for 1. Get ourselves 3 mana. What does that 3 mana do for us? It casts a Boseiju. Is that worth doing? Probably. Not a big lover of where we're at here. But this is quite a polarizing matchup, so we need to do something. Just make a check that I haven't missed anything here. No, we're just going to play out some guys and hopefully use the Cradle plus Shepherd as our win condition. So what is the best creature to get here? If we get the Ranger, that might give us some more mana down the line. I don't want to get a Sentinel here because I don't know if we're going to be able to reliably tap for mana off of it. Could be Birchlore, gives us a 1-2, or we can get redundancy of what we already have. I think I'm going to get the Quirion Ranger. And then I guess like none of these are particularly good for us to hit. I think we have to save the Boseiju in case our opponent plays something like a Mystic Forge or a Paradox Engine. We need to be able to say no to that one. Not feeling good about this one. Again, it's a very polarizing matchup, just like the last one, where a lot of what we're doing doesn't really matter. Are they getting mana out of there as a Saga? For more mana. Alright. I haven't played any of like the big Grim Monolith style cards yet. Alright, Manifold Key. Let's hope that the thing that they try and untap a bunch is something that we get to interact with using our Boseiju. Now, we might just die to all these Fleshraker triggers anyway. It's a very real possibility. This also gives them Metalcraft on the workshop, not that they have anything to do with that Metalcraft just yet. Cordelet's Command. X equals 3. Alright, they're using this to dig and make some guys. Each one of these guys pings us for 1. And then if they find more Cordelet's Command, they can just do it again, ping us for some more. I think I trophied when I played with this colourless deck. It's pretty strong. Yeah. It has an obvious weakness though, which we can hopefully leverage using our Craterhoofs. A Mystic Forge. That's kind of what we were hoping for. So now they put something on the stack, we get to blow up the Mystic Forge. They might not have any basic land types to fetch here, but we'll find out in the very near future. They did not. Okay, that's something. So they're going to bash us for 2 with their Fleshraker. I don't think they need to be scared of us untapping a creature here when they're all 1/1s, but maybe they're just so happy to sit back on their Fleshraker. Yeah, they didn't need to. A Wirewood Symbiote. If we play this, that's basically free because of the Cradle. So this taps for 4 mana. We have 5, so we can't quite do our Heritage Druid nonsense here. We could tap for 3, tap this, untap 1 guy, and come in with 1/5/5, but it's just going to go under the old Eldrazi Spawn bus. I think we're going to hold back with this Wooded Foothills. That 1 point of life may be relevant, and then we're hopefully going to turn that into a Dryad Arbor, which effectively is 2 mana because of the Cradle, and maybe that's enough if we can find anything off the top. Basalt Monolith. Sure, that's not an engine. It is still pinging us down and whittling us away, but we need to just dodge the big scary 4-drops from our opponent's deck. Generating a lot of mana. This doesn't make me feel happy. They want some more mana, so I'm up to 7 here. This could just be a big K command. Okay, it's a Paradox Engine, but they don't have many cards left. Paradox Engine is obviously pretty busted and does a lot of good stuff. However, if they don't have a way to continuously play spells, yikes, that's a pretty good way to continuously play spells, isn't it? They get to untap all their lands, they ping us, then they get whatever they want with the Karn after making a bunch of mana using the Basalt Monoliths and Manifold Keys, and then they can play whatever they found. So if they've got something like a Walking Ballista, they can just kill all of our creatures. If they've got, well, they can't because we can turn them to 5/5s. But they could Ensnaring Bridge, that could be pretty annoying for us. They could just have something like the One Ring and just win the game outright with it. We're going for the Walking Ballista here. This might not work as well as they want it to. So we have to tap all of our stuff in response to our opponent putting this on the stack. Actually, no, they can just kill us with it maybe, right? How much mana have they got? They drain us for 1 with the Fleshraker. That puts us to 9. They would need 18 mana, so they're a little bit shy of that. So it's only an X equals 5. So they untap a bunch of stuff. They do get to... There's no point getting a Dryad Arbor anymore, is there? Let's get this forest. Let's make some mana here. So this gives us creatures they can't immediately ping down. I do not think I'm going to win this particular game of Magic the Gathering. So they get to put some more counters onto their Walking Ballista if that's what they want to do. They get to put 2 more counters on, so it's going to have the ability to ping for 7, which is exactly our life total, as it turns out. Alright, clowned pretty easily and pretty hard there. So we've seen the Boseiju does some work. The Abrupt Decay can blow up some problem permanents, as can the Assassin's Trophy. Reclamation Sage, good. Craterhoof, good. Natural Order, pretty reasonable here. I don't think we're boarding the Fleshraker, the Fatal Push just for the Fleshraker. I think our better way of approaching this is with this sort of stuff. So, what do we need to get rid of? We probably need to trim on some of the less essential pieces. I think we can take out the Jaspera Sentinel. That's not a big deal, is it? Maybe we don't need anthems, or we just need to go bigger with all this sort of stuff. We can probably board out one of these. I guess it's probably the Torsten, because now we're boarding in all these things. The Atraxa is a little bit better because it's got all these hits. The Grist can kill Planeswalkers, so I'd like to keep a Grist in. We're still looking for quite a few cuts though, aren't we? We kind of need this grindy stuff when we get into it. Although mainly we're going to be trying to Green Sun Zenith on Natural Order for a Craterhoof. And we need stuff to do after that. Are we going to be doing the Wirewood Symbiote stuff? Possibly. Just trim on some of the slower things. I think we still want to keep the Craterhoof. And we can probably board out one of these forests since we're boarding in a Boseiju. Let's try this. So, turn 1 we play this. Turn 2 we play this. Turn 3 we get to maybe do something. We have a Boseiju, which helps. We have an Assassin's Trophy, which helps. I think this is acceptable. We've got a couple of stopgap measures to get us over the hump. Our opponent's mulligan to 5, which means taking out one piece is going to be a lot more useful than if they had 7 cards. But if they have the One Ring, that's not a permanent we get to take out. We play the Sentinel, we get to attack, pressure our opponent's life total, because we do need to reduce our opponent's life total to 0 in this matchup. We don't really have any other ways of winning, so every little bit helps, especially when they have Ancient Tombs and things in their mana base. So we get to attack, then we get to untap with the Birchlore. And that allows us to still hold up Boseiju. Or Assassin's Trophy if we do it right. Our opponent definitely knows that we're going to be trying to do Craterhoof stuff. Let's go to attacks. Let's Birchlore in. This will untap our Nettle Sentinel. That'll give us 2 mana. 1 from the land, 1 from the 2 elves. So we can channel a Boseiju or we can Assassin's Trophy something. Now we could just Boseiju our opponent's land straight up. Or we could Assassin's Trophy our opponent's land straight up. But our opponent doesn't have that many cards. I think I still want to... Well, now I'm second guessing myself. So I want to just Boseiju this land. They didn't do anything on one land. They didn't do anything on one land last time. Why would they do anything on one land this time? Last time when we did the Boseiju, they had nothing to find. Okay. Not quite the sort of elf games I wanted to play when I looked at this deck list. But we're doing some things. A Grim Monolith. 3 mana is importantly not 4, but the Manifold Key makes it into more. Right, 4 mana and Khan the Great Creator. What are they going to find? Nothing. They're just plussing. Interesting. So we have a land here. If we play the Reclamation Sage, that gives us 2 mana, which is not enough. So we probably have to Assassin's Trophy this Khan. We will untap our Nettle Sentinel, which does not give us the mana to attack our opponent's permanents here. I think we're going to attack with just the Birchlore Rangers and hold us up for mana for next turn. We're a little bit shy of Reclamation Saging our opponent, so I do get to untap the Grim Monolith and have 4 mana again. I think we have to nail the Khan in that spot. The One Ring. Okay, so now we natural order for the Craterhoof, and then the One Ring will slowly chip them down. A Dryad Arbor. I think you are going to go under the bus. So 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana. Tap this for green. Sacrifice this Dryad Arbor. Untap our Nettle Sentinel. We're going to go and get the Craterhoof here. And then we're just going to bash with our Nettle Sentinel. So now the One Ring is slowly chipping them down without giving them any cards for now. Why did we attack the Nettle Sentinel when they cast the One Ring? That was foolish. Let's put some more power into play. We're untapping our Nettle Sentinel anyway, but still, we didn't need to tap it. I kind of would rather take out this key. But yes, we could have attacked and then untapped the Nettle Sentinel, so we might miss 2 points down the line. An Inventor's Fair. A Glaring Fleshraker. We have a thing for this. Right, so they get to ping us for a little bit. This does give them some more mana to work with. Take this out, black, green. Let's untap our Nettle Sentinel. Goodbye, Fleshraker. Attacks with the team. Play this. It becomes a Dryad Arbor to attack with next turn. Our opponent goes to 2 here, sorry. Actually, no, they got Metalcrafts. They go to 4, then they go to 3. But we're going to have enough lethal attackers, I would imagine. This member doesn't look particularly playable. Alright. Good. Am I okay with how that played out? I think so. I like having lots of ways of interacting with our opponent's permanents that we didn't have in the main. Right. We want to have like a decent contingent of elves there so we can ramp out. Turn 1, Heritage Druid. Turn 2, Abrupt Decay. Turn 3, Abrupt Decay. We're going to need some more mana if we want to get to Craterhoof. I think this has the tools to prolong the game for a couple of turns. If we find a land so we don't have to use our Boseiju as a land, that'd be great. Annoying that we don't get to punish this being played out. Alright, so we found a land, so that's good. So we play just an innocent little Heritage Druid. Next turn, we try and Boseiju or Abrupt Decay one of our opponent's permanents and hope that that does enough. That's a lot of mana. Khan the Great Creator. You know what doesn't kill that? Abrupt Decay. Okay, what are we looking at here? Instant minus. They've got something in mind, I think. Sky Sovereign. Yeah, that's something, isn't it? Natural order. So I'm going to attack the Khan here. And we're going to decay this Monolith. That's the most amount of mana we can take away from our opponent here. And hopefully we can dodge the Sky Sovereign. They might just be having the Sky Sovereign in hand so that they can answer a Craterhoof if it comes down. No, they're just going for it here. Alright, we have that covered with our Boseiju. But I'm more worried about this Khan ticking up. So are we just Boseijuing this when they don't have a creature to crew it? They need to crew it with 3 power. That seems very unlikely to happen in the near future. We need to pressure the Khan. What's the best way of doing that? The best way of doing that is playing a 3-3. That gives up our Boseiju, which I don't really want to do. I think that means we're playing the Visionary here. Quirion Ranger. I think this is worth giving up the Boseiju for. This gives us Craterhoof next turn. They can't crew the Sky Sovereign at that point. So what we can do is we can bounce our forest and then replay it if we miss our land drop. So we can pressure the Khan for 2, and then we can natural order into... Oh yeah, they can just make this into a guy, can't they? They probably hit the Ranger here, I would imagine. Yeah, there we go. So now we need to find the land to do this. Non-interaction comes up very often. Shouldn't have missed it though. Basalt Monolith is fine. Allosaurus Shepherd, that doesn't get where we need to be. We missed on the land here. This deals 3, which is quite a lot. Go to attacks. We attack the Khan. The top card of our library is exactly Dryad Arbor. Then playing this Eladamri out is good. I think we just play out the Shepherd though. Don't want to hit this Basalt Monolith. They haven't done anything with the Basalt Monolith yet. You know, this interaction is going to kill us, and we should have just Boseiju'd it instead of trying to worry about the Khan more. Like, if we'd have hit a land and it wouldn't have mattered, we could have just taken our 1 hit and we would have been fine. So I still think we'd probably end up making that same line in the future. We can deal with a Flesh Raker to keep our life total high. One other problem permanent. Rotate key, that's fine. That doesn't actually do anything just yet. Like, it gives them more mana, but we don't care. They've got loads of mana. Is there anything we're blowing up here? Is it the key? Do we need to be mana efficient with this? I don't think we do. We just need to draw a land. That's what we realistically need to do. So I think our opponent's going to play anything that can mess with us. Maybe. I'm a little bit worried about Kozilek's command, but I don't think we get to worry about that. I think we just have to... Alright, we do get to sacrifice that. This destroys the Khan. That stops the Sky Sovereign from being active. And this also gives us a steady stream of creatures to natural order. Nothing else from our opponent. Let's just make this guy. This gives us some card advantage. Potentially. We've got quite a few creatures in the bin though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 creatures in the bin. So we might be able to use a Grist Ultimate when we get there to be lethal. But I think this game is going to be decided one way or the other before then. Glaring Flesh Raker. This is what we saved the Abrupt Decay for. We could just drain the Grist and kill the Flesh Raker and natural order if we draw the land. Oh, we're not drawing the land, we're drawing the Wirewood Symbiote. And if there's a Dryad Arbor on top, it won't be useful here. Yeah, we just have to hit this, chip away at our opponent for a little bit, and continue. Let's see what is on top of our library. A Wooded Foothills. I would like to draw that, which means I don't really want to activate the Grist. Kind of awkward, because we do want to keep getting this stuff in. Let's just hit this first. We should have plussed this before we cast the... I cast this Birchlore Rangers. This is useful. There's another Abrupt Decay on top. We could play a Wirewood Symbiote now, or we could attack our opponent for 3. Or 4 even. Is that better than playing a Wirewood Symbiote? We have natural order next turn anyway. I think we're going to attack for 4. It's a big Kozilek's command. Or just untapping the monolith. That's fine. Yeah, so this game wasn't really about the Sky Sovereign, in my view. It was more about the Khan. So I do like the line we took, even though we had to sort of give up our Boseiju for it. Alright, let's see what's on top. A forest. Again, I wouldn't mind having a forest here, but we don't need it right now. So let's make another one of these little guys. We can just win the game here. So we go green, green. If we just tap these 2, cast natural order, get Big Daddy Craterhoofs. All our creatures get +5. We'd like to dismember our Craterhoof. So these get +4. So we put our opponent to 1 here. I think we are right to go for the win there, rather than the Craterhoof. As you can see, they would have just Craterhoofed us. They would have just killed our Craterhoof anyway. Alright, we managed to get that match. Kind of surprised by that one. Our opponent didn't have the most amount of gas. They were relying a lot on this Khan to do some work. Maybe they should have just got an artifact like the One Ring in their sideboard if they have one. Alright, let's go to the 4th match. On the play for round 4. We can do some Birchlore stuff. I think we probably just go and get a Dryad Arbor here on turn 1. Seems acceptable to me. And then we're going to see how good this Eladamri is, because this is the thing we're going to be relying on to get the work done. Having to tap a lot of creatures to put our thing in isn't always the best, because we need the creatures untapped so we can beam off them. It's fine if you're putting in an Atraxa or a Torsten. There's our forest. Screen Suns. Go and get ourselves a cheeky Dryad Arbor. Just have that guaranteed extra mana to work with next turn. So we can play Birchlore and Jaspera Sentinel and tap them. Jaspera Sentinel doesn't tap the turn it comes in, but it will tap for the purposes of the Birchlore. Alright, our opponent's on Eldrazi. No turn 1 play is not unusual to see. Right, here is our Birchlore Rangers. Here is our Jaspera Sentinel. Here is our Quirion Ranger. Definitely go over the top of what our opponent's doing, because we've got like more of a combo element to our deck than our opponent does. Like their beatdown is definitely better than ours, but we've got sort of a nice selection of engines going on here. Lotus Petal. We're going to see blue and white mana. That might just be because they needed a colour. Yeah, okay. Another one of these guys. Nothing to follow up with though. Another Birchlore Rangers. So 1 mana, 2 mana. This is 3 mana. So we cast this. A land on top. So we get to untap our Dryad Arbor. It's fine here. Let's play this. So we could Green Sun Zenith here for 1. What does that do for us? Heritage Druid gives us more mana for the following turn. We could Birchlore Rangers. That's just +1 body anyway. Heritage Druid is a lot more mana though. Kind of into having this land on top for next turn. We're going to need to find some more bits and pieces. I just really want a Cradle is the problem. Maybe we'll shuffle so we got more chance of hitting a Cradle here. I think it is the Heritage Druid. It just gets us further up the mana. So we go Heritage Druid here. Alright, so now we can tap these. We can start casting some cards from the top of our library now. Now we're racing around. And then we can get to cast this as well. Alright, not a bad turn. We've got a lot of creatures. We can do a Craterhoof next turn. It's probably lethal. Now the issue is our opponent might be able to get us. The double Fleshraker is how you get to kill people on turn 2. Or turn 3, which we're in right now. So I am a little concerned about how this turn is going to play out for us. Lotus Petal, that's a big jump in mana. We need to hope that their cards in hand aren't Kozilek's command, because that will kill us. Because they'll just be able to command for more commands and it all goes horribly wrong for us at that point. Please stop casting spells, opponent. I beg of you. Hit the Herald's the end. Okay. It's a bit more damage. If we can get to our turn and put Craterhoof Behemoth into play, I think we will win. So this puts us to, what, 7? And they can attack us for 6. Oh, no. More spells. Thought Not Sit. That's very good here. Not only does it hit us, but it stops us having this automatic win next turn. Alright. So this pings us to 1. So our fetch land is off now. Opponent attacks, we have to block. So we know the top card of our library does nothing. However, we can just get something off our Eladamri. Or Allosaurus Shepherd. You are the first thing that we cast. Let's make some mana. This is not a creature, so we do not get to cast this off the top of our library. If our opponent has any spell, they win the game. That's kind of worrying, isn't it? Is there anything we get to do about this? How many creatures they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blockers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Our opponent just has to have a spell to win this game. So we can do some pretty good blocks if they just attack us with a bunch of stuff. We can block and then turn everything into 6/6s. Sorry, 5/5s. Any spell from our opponent is lethal. Because there are no coloured spells in our opponent's deck. Unless they've got like a Elvish Spirit Guide or something. They really don't have any spells. Okay. So all our creatures are going to be large here. So we just have to work out which one are we happy to lose. We have 2 Allosaurus Shepherds. So I think the Allosaurus Shepherd can go here. We say okay here. And then we'll tap some elves. We'll tap some more elves. And we'll make all our guys enormous. And then they're going to cast 1 spell in the second main phase and kill us. Oh, wow. No, they just made a horrible mistake there. Wow. I can't believe we won that one. Yeah, like we're not really doing anything here. Wow. All right. I'll take it. So, how do I feel about this matchup? Not spectacular. Removal spells. I would like some of those. Do I want a big Progenitus? The Atraxa looks good here because it gets to Sword and Shield really effectively. That's going to be a difficult thing for them to get through. The Natural Order is just going to resolve here, so let's smash another one of those in. Do I want a big Progenitus? How different is Progenitus to Atraxa? Not especially in this matchup. I'm not really loving this Jaspera Sentinel. I think I'd rather it was a Llanowar Elves, if I'm being honest. We might want some of these things to make our creatures more beefy. There's only so much we get to trim here. Maybe we'll take out an Eladamri because we're boarding in a Natural Order and they're kind of similar, but the Natural Order is more explosive. Maybe, like, the Wirewood Symbiote gives us the ability to block, like, a big creature and just bounce every turn, and that's really strong. So I think I want to keep those in. Ranger gives us a jump in mana. We don't need our spells uncounterable, so maybe I'll trim one Allosaurus Shepherd. Maybe we have to cut some of these Sylvan Anthems. Is Sylvan Anthem better than Eladamri? I don't think so. Eladamri looked okay there. I'll try something like this. Want to keep the 1-drops in. We just want to natural order our way to Atraxa, I think, in this matchup. Unless we have a lethal Craterhoof. Wow, that looks like the elf hands of old, doesn't it? This is quite an explosive hand in terms of what we can deploy to the board. We will need a little bit of help, but the Cradle is going to get us towards making some big mana. I don't want to get Wasteland. Our opponent does play Wastelands. Are they really going to Wasteland our... If our opponent Wastelands us next turn, I don't mind. So I think I will just get a Bayou here, because we want to cast our black spells later on. So I think we just play the Nettle Sentinel first, or do we play the Heritage Druid so that they can't take it out with a Thought-Knot Seer if they can ramp one out? That makes more sense. So double Nettle Sentinel with this Heritage Druid is going to absolutely pop off for us. And then we now have a draw engine in this Leaf-Crowned Visionary, so I don't mind our spot. You're going to wasteland our Bayou? They are going to wasteland the Bayou. I did say I didn't mind them doing that. So here we are. I think I'm just going to play this Dryad Arbor now. So we can play the Sentinel, we can play the Cradle and play a Sentinel. But I'd rather get more mana out of this before we get a Wastelander potentially. So I'm just going to play this. I'm going to bash for 1. And next turn we can do a big Cradle turn and just deploy our entire hand. And probably draw some cards along the way. I haven't done the maths yet, but we'll see how that pans out for us. Oh, our opponent came here to deny us mana, did they? Alright, they've dismembered our Dryad Arbor. Sure. Playing quite reactively. I imagine we have to see some sort of threat deployed this turn. Be the Fleshraker? It is. Have they got some colour spell to go with it? Like a Lotus Petal? They do not. An Atraxa. Okay, so now I think we are somewhat priced into firing out our Cradle here. Birchlore Rangers would have actually been better for us in this specific turn. But if we get another turn without anything too scary happening, we get to deploy a lot of things. Now we can't natural order for our Atraxa anymore. We can Eladamri it in, but we don't have one of those right now. So this being in our hand is certainly awkward, which is the nature of playing decks with tutor targets like that. Sometimes you draw them when you need them in your library. 4 mana. I think this is a Thought-Knot Seer. There it is. Our hand is fine against this. They probably take the Leaf Crowned, which is obviously the thing that allows us to sort of snowball out. But as long as they don't wasteland us, we should be able to just be making some large creatures here. And they've lost a fair amount of health to their own Ancient Tomb over there. I wonder if they offer us the Fleshraker trade. Because I don't think we can trade the Fleshraker for the Sentinel now. But there's a trade that I would like to make at some point. But we need this Cradle to catch us up, so we probably can't block. Whether or not they'll take us up on that bluff or not, we'll see. It also depends on the strength of the rest of their hand. If they think that they could possibly get away with trading the Fleshraker to slow us down, then they might send it in. If they're really attached to having the Fleshraker around, then they will keep it and not even risk us doing a trade, even though that trade doesn't look very good for us at this moment. They took the Nettle Sentinel. Okay. They don't want to tap the Fleshraker. Misty Rainforest. Sure. Let's crack this out. So we're going to get ourselves a Bayou at this point. So what are we playing here first? We probably want to get an elf down. Which elf do we want to get down? Probably a 1-mana elf, so that we have the ability to tap these for 3. Let's go through here. We will cast our Leaf-Crowned Visionary. And then we will tap this for some manas. Cast this. I'd very much like to draw a card. Green Sun Zenith is pretty nice here. So we can make another 3 mana. And then we can Green Sun Zenith for 5. Is 5 a particularly useful number? Not really. We could do it for 3 and get the Eladamri though. A natural order. That doesn't really do what we need it to do there. But it's going to be a good card to have next turn. That's for sure. So as long as our opponent doesn't kill us, we can just overrun them with a big Craterhoof next turn. We also can use the Eladamri to put in the Atraxa if that's what we want to do as well. Are they playing another Fleshraker? Well, we saw how this went last time. Our opponent had the opportunity to beat us. And if they play it correctly, I think they probably can from this stage. They only have 2 cards in hand, so they might not be able to strip us down completely. But a single Kozilek's command and we just lose. It's not 100% certain, but it's just very likely that they kill us if they have a Kozilek's command. We could see a Myco spawn here. Try and get Wasteland to take us off of Cradle. Oh, it's a K command for 1. What are they targeting here? They just want to scry and make a guy. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. Our life total is getting whittled down. They ping us for another 2 here. If they find another Kozilek's command, that should be just about enough. They did put the Kozilek on the bottom. Okay, that's a lot of pings. So that's, what, 2, 4, 6, 8? Is that exactly lethal? I guess we'll find out. We'll just yield through this turn and see what happens. I think it is lethal because they get 2 from casting it, then they get 2 from it coming in, and then they get 2 from the trigger it makes there. Alright, we didn't quite manage to get over the line there, but we're very close, and I'm quite confident we can do in a game 3 if we don't miss the land drop like we did. This hand is slow. This hand is very slow. We've got 2 basically dead cards. I think we mulligan this one. No land. Yikes. Like, I guess we have to keep this. I suppose we'll put back a couple of lands here. We'll start on the Dryad Arbor and pass. Cavern of Souls. It's unlikely they make a play this turn unless it's a Dismember. Oh no, they got something. Or Chalice for 1. Yeah, that's fine. It's not very good against what we're doing, to be honest, because of the fact we can just tutor for the Allosaurus Shepherd. I would very much like to try and put his natural order on the stack as soon as possible. We could go and get a Dryad Arbor to help that. Or we could go and get the Allosaurus Shepherd to make sure that we don't care about the Chalice in the future. Heritage Druid is obviously lots of mana, but we don't have the stuff to go with that right now. Would love to have a Llanowar or Elves in our deck. Like, obviously, Dryad Arbor is kind of similar in that position. Just lets us natural order next turn. Alright. I think it's correct to try and natural order next turn. We missed out on 1 point of damage because we didn't make our decision before we cast the Green Sun Zenith. But we had to cast it. Actually, no, we had to cast it, really, because of the Chalice of the Void, right? The Glaring Fleshraker. Yep. I see you, opponent. I see what you're up to. Let's go and get ourselves a Bayou. That's natural order. Let's get that big Atraxa in there. Our opponent can just combo us out through this. How many instants are there? It's just the Abrupt Decay. The only sorcery is the Green Sun Zenith, so we take that one. Land-wise, I'm very much taking a Cradle. And then we get to choose between Allosaurus Shepherd, which seems pretty good, because the other ones we can't cast. So we could always decay away this, but I think the Allosaurus Shepherd is fine here. That means we don't have to use our Abrupt Decay on the Chalice of the Void. We also just have a 7/7 lifelink vigilance creature, so we can just pad our life total quite effectively. Now our opponent might be able to just combo us next turn and just Fleshraker into Kozilek's command, and just bury us. Right, that Wasteland is not going to be able to hit our Cradle. Okay, they're going for the Dryad Arbor, sure. Another Fleshraker. Okay, this is getting towards a problem, but they'll only have 1 mana here. Not so bad. So I think we... First of all, we gain our little pound of flesh here. 7 of your finest life points, please, opponent. So I'd very much like to Abrupt Decay this creature. What is the most effective way of doing that? If we play Allosaurus Shepherd out first, then our Abrupt Decay, then our Cradle attacks for 2 and we get to play more things. I like playing more things. There's triggers, but it doesn't do anything because it can't be countered. We get to tap this. We will Abrupt Decay one of these. Play its Heritage Druid. Can't be countered because of the Allosaurus Shepherd. And our opponent has had enough with us. That's another victory on the board, and that felt pretty good. This feels more like the sort of match that we want to play. The only thing I'm actually scared of from our opponent is if they manage to do the Fleshraker combos. And they kind of did that in one game, but they messed up a combat step because Elves has a lot of tricky stuff going on. So 4 rounds in, and we are currently 3-1. Not a bad record. Let's see if we can turn it into a 4-1. Alright, this is quite a fairish hand. I'm going to give it a whirl. We haven't done that much with Sylvan Anthem, and I want to give it a test. So I'm going to give this... I think we're better off playing the... Is it better off playing the Birchlore or the Heritage? I'll play the Birchlore here. Elves experts, let me know in the comment which one of those you're supposed to play there. It's a similar situation to before, where if we lose our Birchlore Rangers, the Heritage Druid taps for more, but doesn't tap for any mana if we don't have enough creatures. Are we just going to play aggressive here and just jam this Leaf-Crowned Visionary? Or are we going to go a little bit wild and see if they want to daze this Sylvan Anthem? Spell Pierce. Was not expecting that one. Right, we'll get our 1 damage in. So we can play Leaf-Crowned and Heritage Druid and draw a card next turn. And then possibly play some more stuff. We'll see what our opponent's up to though. A Brainstorm. I'm expecting some kind of like slow control deck when we're seeing the Snow-Covered Island, and Spell Pierce is probably just like a one-off. I know some of the Miracle players are messing around with like having a few nice one-offs to find, like Spell Snare, Spell Pierce, Stern Scolding, that sort of jam. We did a similar thing when we played Miracles on the channel a week or 2 ago. I can't remember what it was now. Green Sun's Zenith. We don't have any black spells in the main deck, do we? Let's go and get this forest. So we cast this Leaf Crown Visionary. Let's cast this. Let's go and draw a free card. Not a bad one. I would like to daze. That's fine. I'm curious though, having daze in here alongside the spell pierce. That does say tempo deck to me. So maybe we're looking at like Dreadnought tempo maybe? Tamiyo. Good card's good. I would say this was my most underrated card from Modern Horizons. It played a lot better than I thought it was going to. I'm willing to acknowledge when I make a mistake. So, like, our opponent's been doing some annoying counter magic stuff. We could just green some Zenith for 1, see if it resolves, and then go from there. Force of Will, pitching back to basics. Okay, let's try again. So I think we want the Allosaurus Shepherd so stuff resolves. Am I playing this Boseiju out? I don't think so. Our opponent's shown us back to basics. We don't really care about back to basics, but what if they're playing other permanents that we might care about? We'll see. Right, so there's a Flooded Strand. So our opponent is not mono blue. I was not expecting them to be. Blue-white would be my guess. There it is. We source the Plowshares on our poor Leaf Crown Visionary. So we can draw an actual order and just slam something big. We'll probably get Torsten here and reload if that's what we draw. Okay, that's a pretty nice one to have, isn't it? Let's have an uncountable Eladamri, please. Don't really want this. Let's tap 2 elves. This one and this one is probably fine. Now, drawing a clue. So what would I like here? I kind of want the Wirewood Symbiote so that we just have protection from removal spells at this point. Heritage Druid. By not having an elf here, we don't get to then play this off the top, which is a little bit frustrating. But I think having... Actually, if we can bounce... I don't really want to bounce the Eladamri because that costs us a lot of mana to do so. If we bounce the Allosaurus Shepherd to untap something, we don't get anywhere with that. If we bounce the Eladamri, that's a lot of mana we're setting ourselves back for. I think we're just going to pass. We should have attacked for 1. That was a mistake. Got 2 in my head about ways of trying to leverage this Wirewood Symbiote, but just didn't really come together. Right, Tamiyo is doing some stuff. Flipping the Tamiyo is also a little bit problematic for us, because -1ing our creatures does stop our like mediocre beats. It becomes very hard. Oh wow, they're just scooping it up. They didn't fancy it. Intriguing. So they're going to bring in sweepers, which makes Progenitus less exciting to me, which is a shame. I did want to get some Progenitus action going. I don't think we need to bring anything to fight against a Tamiyo. Do I want an Agatha's Soul Cauldron to stop potential Snapcaster Mages and Mystic Sanctuaries, whilst also being able to like front load to like load up on some useful abilities? I do not hate that. I like the card advantage creatures and the I win the game creature a lot more than the here's a big threat, can you answer it? Not massively into the natural order here, but we have all these Allosaurus Shepherds. I think, is it one of the Sylvan Anthems? It could be a Sylvan Anthem that goes here. It could be this Jaspera Sentinel. I've bordered that out a fair amount. It's not filling me with a great amount of joy. We could trim 1 natural order because our opponent is going to be... Our opponent's probably just going to play a lot more removal though. Alright, let's go with Jaspera Sentinel and see if this Soul Cauldron is a useful thing to have access to. We definitely want to be fetching basics against what our opponent's shown us. Alright, I will keep his hand. I like what it has on offer. Let's see what land our opponent starts off with. Okay, a Tamiyo and an island. I would like to play... We'd like to set our opponent back and then sandbag this Allosaurus Shepherd. I think we just... It's probably just going to get removed immediately. That's kind of just how this game goes sometimes. Alright, we'll play the Allosaurus Shepherd. We got lots of mana. We've got a decent chunk of payoffs in our deck. We just need to find them. We can just start attacking our opponent with creatures because they're not really going to be able to defend very well against that. Because this Tamiyo is always turning sideways, I reckon. Underground Sea. Oh, okay. They're Esper. They kept that quiet in game 1, didn't they? That probably explains why the scoop happened. They just couldn't cast their cards. Okay, so we play out a Birchlores. Then we play out this Quirion Ranger. And then we play out a fetch land. And then we can block their Psychic Frog if they don't make it jump. And then return it. And that way they don't get cards unless they put more cards in their own graveyard. Which is obviously a thing their deck's going to be relatively good at doing. But maybe we could just get a Sylvan Anthem and just send a bunch of green critters into the red zone. Alright, so they're discarding a card Psychic Frog, and now they're going to jump it. There it is. Our opponent does not look like Back to Basics is going to be coming down anytime soon. So they can flip the Tamiyo this turn, which is pretty good against our deck. -1 power, and we're nothing but 1/1s. That's something, isn't it? So we're probably going to get the forests with these 2 lands. So we're going to get a Dryad Arbor with this one. Prismatic Ending on our Allosaurus Shepherd. Careful Strix. That stops us like getting in at our opponent a little bit. Also going to flip that Tamiyo. Let's go and get this Dryad Arbor, shall we? No Underground Mortuary in our list. Which is something to think about. What are we doing here? We just don't have anything going on. We can play this into some more sweepers. That doesn't feel good. But if they sweep, I don't really mind if they're losing all their guys. We at least get to bounce something. We can't attack here. Our creatures have no power due to the Tamiyo. Yikes. I think we need a Fatal Push here. I was not expecting the black mana out of our opponent, and now we're sort of seeing a bunch of things that we need to answer. I think the Fatal Push probably, and the Abrupt Decay is definitely. Yeah, they're just going all in on Frog. This is the best card in Legacy right now. So, it's going to come smashing in. Can't block any of these. A Jaspera Sentinel can block and trade with a Baleful Strix, but we took that out. And I don't think that's a good reason for it to be in the deck, to trade with a Baleful Strix. Alright, -1 on the Tamiyo. So we're like Esper Tempo by the looks of things. Just a bit of Baleful Strix as being one of the best things against Frog. Okay, let's go and get another Dryad Arbor. Sylvan Anthem is okay here. Cradle, not so much. Our creatures have no power. Our opponent's got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage, so we're not dead next turn, but the turn after. I guess they can crack a clue. That puts us to 10. They can crack a clue next turn. Yeah, they can kill us if they just crack the clues and just try and 100 to 0 us. Is it worth discarding 6 cards to kill us? It might be. Or what are they worried about? Us top decking something like a Natural Order. Yep, more cards going in. Yep, so it's 2 mana thing that draws you a card every turn, has evasion, wins combat, and then when it needs to be, it's also a 7 power evasive creature. You're going to crack that clue? And the rest of your cards? No. I don't really think they needed to get rid of all those cards, because it doesn't affect the clock, really. They do also get to draw all the cards next turn with Tamiyo. I would describe the situation we find ourselves in as probably unwinnable. Right, what cards would our opponent keep in their hand? Something that counts as Natural Order. We can draw a land? We did draw a land. Yeah, we just flooded out a bit there. And our opponent had a lot of stuff going on. Okay, so I think I want these Abrupt Decays, and I think I want a Fatal Push. I think these things interest me enough that I want them. Sylvan Anthem does help us versus Tamiyo. I don't think we're doing Soul Calder. I think I misread what our opponent was up to. I do like these card advantage ones as well. Maybe we'll trim on Natural Order because we might not be able to reliably resolve them. Let's get rid of a couple of Sylvan Anthems. I do like the fact they let us attack into a Tamiyo. But I think we need our like big payoffs and card advantage stuff going on. So this is what we're going with. Can we put the 4-1 on the board? Which is final game of the league. Okay, I like having the Allosaurus Shepherd. Feast upon my uncounterable Allosaurus Shepherd. It might be worth having a single Savannah for Torsten here. I guess we do have the Birchlores though. Alright, so we're almost certainly resolving our spell. Big into that. Let's go and get another forest, because we've seen back to space. I'm not expecting back to space as a thing, but there's no reason to play into it at this point. Behold, the almighty Dinosaur Shepherd. 2 damage to your face. So now when we play our Heritage Druid, we get a little bit of additional selection. Psychic Frog, yep. That's a good and irritating one. A Nettle Sentinel. Like, it's mana, but that's not really what we're about right now, is it? Like, this whole game has now just become, can we beat this Psychic Frog? We play this, it will trigger the Sylvan Anthem. Cradle, though. Cradle is big news. That allows us to potentially race what our opponent's doing. I don't think I'm attacking into this, because Psychic Frog always wins combat. It can make it a 7 power creature. Oh dear, oh dear. So we can bash our opponent for 12 next turn. Cradle. That's a pretty steep clock. Our opponent's probably going to have some amount of Fatal Push, Swords to Plowshares, Prismatic Ending to say about it. If we take our Allosaurus Shepherd, then we're not getting a lot done with our Cradle here. So probably cast a removal spell and then use that to jump the Frog. They could just attack with the Frog. It depends how desperate they are to get an extra card here. Like, I don't think we can realistically block this Frog. Like, it attacks. If we block it, then it's a removal spell that then gets to attack us next turn. So it's like they automatically drew a removal spell, which is probably a lot worse than them hitting us and maybe not drawing a removal spell. Oh dear, why is Psychic Frog legal in Legacy? It does have great art though. There's no denying that. Right, here comes the Prismatic Ending on the Allosaurus Shepherd. Goodbye. So that means we're probably playing this Windswept Heath so that we can go and get a Dryad Arbor. And it's kind of like build your own underground mortuary at that point. We just can't block this. Coming in for 4. Now the frog gets to connect. They get a free card. I'm going to activate this and see if they want to do anything in response. We're not going to block here, but our opponent doesn't know that. The problem is our opponent's already going to have 2 cards out of this frog. And they're going to desperately like fire off 3 cards and then jump the frog. There's one. God, they're discarding an Orcish Bowmasters. How good is their hand? I guess the Sylvan Anthem is helping against the Bowmasters. Wow, they're really just going in for it. Kind of wild. Like, what card could they be looking to draw that's better than removing one of our creatures? That's what they want to do, just remove one of our creatures every turn. If this frog just becomes the Abyss as well, that's good for them. I don't think they needed to do any of that. Another frog, you say? Cool. Cool, cool, cool. We have a Fatal Push. Our opponent has a lot of stuff going on over here. Are we just sending in the clowns, seeing what they do with this Psychic Frog? If we kill this, we can go in all in on this and 2-turn us. But we might be able to get them. Yikes. Are we attacking here? See if we can get some cards out of our opponent. Got Force of Will or something? You're drawing some extra cards. You play around a Spell Pierce. Force of Will and Force of Negation. Okay. So our opponent for 4. Now they just bash us for 6. Potentially 8. They should just hit us for 6 and kill us the following turn. They could just kill us for 4 and kill us the following turn. This game is, you know, they got to turn Psychic Frog sideways quite early doors. And we're just not being able to beat that. Card's too good. We have very few ways of interacting with it. Our opponent has drawn enough cards that they can protect it. Like, even if you do have ways of interacting with it, if your opponent has connected with it once, then they're still ahead from the exchange of you dealing with it. An Abrupt Decay. Maybe that helps us here. Do I want to play out this Cradle? I don't think I do. Maybe we mess our opponent up and we get an additional turn that maybe we didn't deserve. My thoughts on Psychic Frog are pretty clear at this stage. I've been calling for it to be banned for, what, since July? So, here we are. Alright, you're making that one big. That's good. I'm not going to declare any blockers. You're going to try and win the game? There's one. There's another one. Oh, we're going to get him here. Such greed with your frogs. Alright, now our opponent is kind of not under wraps, but they are in a situation where we might be able to claw our way back into this game. We could cast an Eladamri here. Really? The one card you drew for turn was Force of Negation. Jeez. Don't have it one time, opponent. Yikes. Oh dear, oh dear. In a lot of ways, this was worse than Grief, because Grief, you kind of know you're done, right? Whereas this way, you think, oh, maybe it's okay, but it never is. Okay, the illusion of choice. Alright, so we're going to hit us for 4. Now, we cast 2 removal spells on Psychic Frog this game. And it doesn't matter. Okay, nothing we have does anything. They can just jump and kill us. Yeah, I don't like the way our opponent played that particular game. I think they could have diversified their frog portfolio, if you will. But it doesn't really matter. So we finished with a 3 and 2. Deck felt pretty reasonable, to be honest. We lost to the Doomsday deck, where it's just turn one-ing us. There's nothing we can do with our list about that. Some Elf decks play the Thoughtseize in the sideboard. We could have that if we wanted to. I think it's alright just to write off certain matchups, like the Doomsday matchup. We sideboarded slightly wrong in that last one because we thought they were on like a blue-white control deck, and it turns out they were on a Psychic Frog deck, so we had a game 2 where we didn't have the sideboard we would necessarily want in that matchup, which certainly cost us a little bit. But at the end of the day, if a frog connects with you once, you already start falling behind, and even if you do manage to kill their frog, like we did, it's too late and doesn't matter. Even though our opponent went all in on a frog, they discarded, what was it, six cards to their frog, I think they discarded in total, and we killed it. So we got a 7 for 1, and we were still behind. Yeah, cards bananas. But let's talk about this deck. That's what you're here for. So we didn't really get to do any Torsten stuff, which is a shame. We did put Atraxa in once, and it was great. We obviously won a game with Craterhoof Behemoth. You know, that's all well and good. What I will say is this Eladamri card looks really cool. Now, the reason why you have the Sylvan Anthem here is because this card is really good with Eladamri, because you play a creature off the top of your library, then you get to see what the next card is and decide whether or not you want it. And if you don't want it, you get rid of it, and maybe there's a creature on top, and then you get to rinse and repeat. So this is kind of like a combo trying to be assembled here. But I think if you want to do that, we should probably be going harder into both of these cards, right? Because if you have an Eladamri and a Sylvan Anthem, then you're not drawing additional Eladamris, because you're just scrying them away anyway. And maybe this engine is better than trying to do like Elvish Visionary, Wirewood Symbiote stuff, or Leaf Crown Visionary stuff. So maybe we could try something going even more into these Sylvan Anthems. What I will say about Sylvan Anthem, it didn't look like it did that much. And we did board it out a fair bit. However, you did notice in the last round, our opponent was discarding Orcish Bowmasters against an elf deck because we had the Anthem to protect us from Bowmasters. So that's pretty interesting. It did kind of do what it was supposed to do in that particular matchup to a degree. But do I want to spend 2 mana just to get an Anthem effect for my guys that tend to attack for lethal when I'm doing my lethal thing? So it's like, getting Scry 1 whenever we cast a creature, is that good enough? Like, we could just play Glimpse and just suck it up and say, okay, well, we pay 1, but we draw a card. And if it draws us like 3 cards, then the Glimpse is so many times better than Sylvan Anthem. Alternatively, we could just play more Leaf Crown Visionaries, right? This is a 1-1 on its own. That is the downside of this. But we're having similar impacts in terms of pumping our creatures. And this lets us draw cards instead of letting us scry 1. I do appreciate the combo with the Eladamri, but we never got to set it up. We almost got to set it up, but our opponent had that last spell to mess with us. So where do I sit on this deck right now? I think you're going to see a lot of more Orcish Bowmasters now than you were before, because people aren't playing Doughty Voidwalker in the main to deal with Rescaminator as much, because everything now hinges on how you interact with Frog. And we don't really interact with Frog very well. You know, we brought in the Abrupt Decays, we killed him, like I said, we got the 7 for 1. No, it was an 8, it was a 7 power creature, right? Yeah. And yeah, it was just not enough. Now, we can go over the top of the Frog. That's the only thing we can do. And we can certainly go wide of it as well. So I don't think this is horribly positioned, because we're trying to do something pretty unfair. And we're trying to do it in the early turns of the game. So Frog is mainly going to draw like 1 or 2 cards. But in the olden days, when you've been playing against sort of a tempo deck like that, if you got to this mid-range grindy stage, you would start pulling away with your deck. But now, Frog just means that they start pulling away, because they get to do that, and then they get to select with all their cantrips as well, using these extra cards in their hand. So it's a tough crowd out there. Jaspera Sentinel, not really a fan of this. Like, the original list didn't have a Torsten, so there's even less reason to have something like a Jaspera Sentinel. What is wrong with good old-fashioned Llanowar Elves? So if we had Llanowar Elves in our deck, it does enable us to have a turn 2 Green Sun Zenith 4 Collective, which is really big. So I would be interested in having some sort of Llanowar Elf inclusion here. And that also makes your like Quirion Ranger better as well. And your Wirewood Symbiote, you can actually untap and get mana and sort of generate a little bit more going on. So I'm not wholly convinced by these 4 slots, really. The Sylvan Anthem and the Jaspera Sentinel. But, you know, the deck felt fine. You know, we put a reasonable record on the board, especially considering a lot of people aren't rating Elves right now. But is this better than just doing the Elf deck that has Nardu in? Probably not. Like, Nardu is a much better engine than Eladamri, because you just draw your entire deck. And assembling Nardu plus Nomads and Core is a lot easier than assembling Eladamri and Sylvan Anthem and then playing some other stuff off the top. So I don't believe this is the best incarnation of Elves right now, but I had an absolute blast playing it for the most part. And I think there's definitely something here, and you can continue to play Elves in different styles. And I would like to invest a little bit more in playing some Eladamri and see if we can do a little bit more with this. This card was pretty good, in my view, and we could definitely try and leverage this a bit more than we're currently doing. Sadly, we didn't get to put Progenesis into play, but, you know, sometimes it's not going to happen. I think if I'd have realised what our opponent was doing, maybe we want the Progenesis, but then trying to cast, in the last round I mean, but then trying to cast the Natural Order is not great against the blue decks. I mean, that's why I boarded down on it. But just putting one in off the Eladamri might have been good, but we didn't really get that opportunity. Alright, I think we are done there, so I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope the donor is pleased with my thoughts on this one. I always like to try and give a decent amount of feedback, especially when I do a donation deck. If you want a donation deck, stay tuned, and I've got like a little pitch about my Patreon at the end of this video. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.